What's up, guys? I'm EJ. I'm joined by Shamari and Kendall for another episode recap of Wandavision. Today, we're going to be talking about episode 8, previously on. Kendall and Shamari, we talked about the possibility of this being a Agatha-centric episode. We talked about the possibility of this being a throwback or a kind of a rehash kind of episode. And we got both. We got them both combined. This was an episode that definitely took us back and kind of, wanted to kind of explain kind of a little bit of how we got here. And they used Agatha and telling more of her story as an avenue to do that. So it was the penultimate episode of this season. We're coming up to a really big finale, but this was going to be an important setup to that. I'm curious, Kendall, what did you think of how they set this up?
Yeah. I mean, I had mentioned last week that I thought there was a chance that we would get a flashback episode, and that wasn't really met with a whole lot of excitement. But it ended up being obviously pretty decent. We'll talk about the grades at the end, but the way that they went about it, I thought was very interesting. We really got a ton of backstory on the Wanda Maximoff character. And that's something that we haven't really gotten from her character, in the initial phases of the MCU.
Right.
There's a lot of kind of holes that they tried to fill in this, and I thought it was interesting. Am I the only one that watched this episode and thought that it was a little strange? Like, if you're just taking out all of the what we know about the business of Hollywood or whatever, am I the only one that thought that, like, in the context of like the MCU, that it was a little strange that there was no Pietro? I mean, there was a little Pietro, but like there was no like Aaron Taylor Johnson.
Well, do we think that we'll never ever get him? Like, we have one more episode left. I mean,
That's true. I mean, it's
know,
possible.
It's true.
It's possible, but
I almost feel like, I mean, I'll answer that question and I'll let Sham get his thoughts. I mean, to me, I almost feel like, and I think Agatha kind of had the line, I would have got your real brother, but he's buried and filled with holes, so I wasn't gonna bring a dead body back. And a lot of these kind of cutesy lines by Agatha actually was able to kind of piece together, okay, what is she able to do, and how does that affect everything else that's going on as well. I think a lot of the theme of this episode is grief. I think it's explaining why the kind of grief this woman has been through has led her to this point. So to me, I almost feel like, Aaron Taylor Johnson's kind of conspicuous by his absence. I kind of think that the fact that he's not there, I think, is kind of powerful. I think that when you watch these movies, with this show, the assumption is you've watched all the movies. They've mentioned him a million times. I think the idea that, some people just don't get brought back is important. So I kind of dig that he wasn't brought back, and I thought the explanation that Agatha gave me was still leaves me intrigued as to what the deal actually is with Pietro. But we'll have to get into that later in the episode. What do you think, Sham?
Yeah, I mean, I am. I mean, look, I feel more connected to the other Pietro, obviously, or Pietro, whatever, however you want to call him.
Pietro, there you go. Yeah.
The Evan
Yeah.
Peters. Yeah.
Yeah, the Evan Peters, Pietro. So, I mean, in terms of the story, I could see how you would think that Aaron Taylor Johnson, Pietro, would appear in the show. So yeah, I do get that. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'm one of the people in the camp still holding out hope that that we're getting this Fox Quicksilver, though the hope is definitely waning.
Well,
It's definitely getting very thin.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm sure we'll get into that.
I'm seeing that a lot of people are feeling like their hopes for like the most big crossover kind of things are really waning. I think people are jumping the gun a little bit. I think there's still a lot more time left in this last episode. I think it will certainly be the longest one. This one was 46 minutes, something around there. I think this will probably be at least that, maybe north of that. If you're doing the math for Feige saying he wants 6 hours of content for all these things, we're talking about probably an hour of content. We'll see if they stick to that 6 hour thing, but even if he goes near that, that would mean that he'd have to get at least another episode in that's at least 45 minutes. So I still think there's stuff happening. We'll get into all that stuff in a minute. But yeah, I'm not someone who's who was clamoring to see him. I think this idea of us being reminded of just how much that loss really hurt Wanda, and to compound that with Vision, I don't think we needed multiple dead people returning. So I'm fine with him not showing up. Speaking about this episode, we should talk about this episode. It began with a bit of an origin story into who Agatha Harkness was to start before we got into any of the flashback stuff. We see she is a witch from Salem back in the 1600s, and it wasn't the kind of witch sacrifice that I think people maybe anticipated when you think about her origin story in the comics. This was the witches, who's kind of sacrificing the witch. They were like, "Yo, fam, you're on the next ish. Like you're doing dark magic. You're doing stuff way ahead of where you're supposed to be at." And do you deny these claims? And she was denying them, but then she was like, "Actually, it's calling to me. I don't know what to say." First of all, Catherine Hahn in this episode, just a truly epic performance. Both her and Elizabeth were great in this episode, but Agatha, closed the show great last week, and like she just picked up where she left off. But I thought a tremendous performance. And we see in that scene that whatever power those witches had, she went far beyond them through her studies in the dark magic, and she overpowered them greatly. And I think that scene was important because it showed her strength and showed what her abilities are, but it kind of set also the stage for where Wanda is, because when we come back to current times and she's talking about, look, man, I've learned all this. I know how to do this stuff. You don't know anything about magic. You don't even know that I put a protective barrier here so that only one of us can do magic. How are you doing anything? It also kind of let us know how far gone Wanda's powers have now become, and that she's gone far beyond anything, even with Agatha in that first scene. Seeing Agatha overpower her mother along with those other witches showed that, okay, there's levels to this. And Agatha's pretty strong, but Wanda is on some cosmic kind of level.
Yeah, I found it interesting that, first of all, I found it funny that they made the actress that played her mom, she looked more like the comic book version of Agatha Harkness, like
that was nice. I like
the
that
animated version of Agatha Harkness. So I thought that was interesting. But yeah, it was definitely important to get backstory on who Agatha Harkness is, because one, she's not like she was some household name anyway in the comics, but two, it's just for the sake of the story, you have to explain where her origins come from. And it's interesting because in the comics, Agatha Harkness, and in the iterations that I've seen, like she's not really a full-on villain,
like a big boss.
Yeah, she's not the big boss. She acts as almost a sort of mentor to Wanda in terms of teaching her, how to be a witch. And that is where when we're looking at this Catherine Hahn character, she hasn't really done anything full on evil yet.
I was gonna say. I feel like this episode definitely left more of a gray area. I mean, last week it seemed like they were definitely saying this is the villain, but here, it seems by the end, and we'll see. Every person is the hero in their own head, and maybe Agatha is that hero in her head. But in the end, she's concerned. She's like, this is a person who is very dangerous, who shouldn't be wielding this kind of power. And I've only seen this once, and it's for someone who's very dangerous. So I kind of feel like they gave her a little bit of a wiggle room coming into this last episode. Now, obviously, she's choking out some kids, so she doesn't look necessarily heroic. But I think there is a little bit of a gray area, I think, to her that they tried to establish a little bit, especially towards the end.
Yeah. I think they're showing that, and I think they brought that into her character in that intro scene, and you see her kind of being attacked by the witches coming and
right,
and and she kind of gives you that sense that she's just trying to survive, kind of thing, and she survived for centuries, and now. And she says she was drawn to the area through all the magic and everything that was going on, and so many spells. I very much am enjoying Catherine Hahn's performance. She's doing a great job, and I mean, the Agatha Harkness character. I feel like there has to be another shoe to drop. We're gonna get to all the loose ends, I'm sure, but there's a million loose ends.
Yeah.
With this show, and EJ, I agree. I feel like this next episode, it should be longer for many reasons. First of all, they said they had that time commitment,
Right?
But also, I mean, there's so many other things.
Yeah.
That
I completely skipped over
completely
what's happening with Pietro and Monica.
Monica Rambeau.
They introduce the Vision storyline.
The whole Vision thing. Yeah, we don't know anything about that. There's the whole Ralph stuff. We don't know anything about that.
Right.
There's all this. There's a lot of stuff going on.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of stuff we don't know anything that's going on.
And I assume that some stuff I think they'll leave to interpretation. Like the commercials, for example. I don't know if we're going to get a clear-cut explanation on every commercial or why the commercials are playing.
Yeah,
I think that's going to be a loose end. That's never going to be
Yeah, I think they'll just say, you know what? Figure that out. But then I also feel like there are going to be some things that are left for Doctor Strange, too.
I think so, too. I hope they don't leave too much to Doctor Strange. And again, I want Doctor Strange to be Doctor Strange. I hope it's still a Doctor Strange movie.
So
I mentioned that, huh?
So does Scott Derrickson.
Yeah, right. I briefly mentioned that on our podcast, and or did I? I feel like I did. If I didn't, then I know I
Probably.
told you. But yeah, I want Doctor Strange to be Doctor Strange. I don't want Doctor Strange to be WandaVision Part 2 necessarily.
Right.
Though I enjoyed WandaVision, but so I don't know. I was hoping this would be its own thing, and Doctor Strange will pick up from there. It had its whole arc, its whole story, but then Doctor Strange has some characters in it. It has some of the repercussions of what happened in WandaVision that pick up from Doctor Strange. That's what I was hoping for. So I hope that this really can tie up all the many loose ends that are present.
It's funny because speaking of Doctor Strange, like on our last podcast, which you can find on all podcast platforms, obviously. Yes. On our last podcast, I mentioned how I rewatched the Marvel 2019 Hall H Comic-Con panel at San Diego, and how when they introduced WandaVision, they introduced Paul Bettany and Elizabeth Olsen's playing WandaVision. But then when they brought Elizabeth Olsen back for the Doctor Strange announcement to say that she was in it, Kevin Feige made a point to say that she's playing the Scarlet Witch.
Yeah.
And I found that interesting. Obviously, the timing of that could not have been better because obviously we find out in this episode that's the moniker that Agatha classifies Wanda as. What do we think, EJ, about the idea that the Scarlet Witch is like this mythological character in witch lore in the MCU?
Yeah, it's an interesting it's an interesting decision. Because for long we kept kind of wondering why won't they refer to her as a Scarlet Witch? Do they really just find this to be super corny, and that's why there's no headset. That's why they don't have the corset, and they're not even going with the name because they just think all of it is corny. And I feel like in the past, Elizabeth Olsen has kind of like alluded to some of those things. She has mentioned wanting to go full Scarlet Witch in regards to like House of M, but that a lot of the elements of her character felt outdated and corny, basically. So, to me, this is somewhat of a retcon. I don't know if this was always their plan. I think they tried to say, we really want to have her go full tilt into whatever they're trying to get her to do. So it's like, well, how would we do that? And clearly going full Scarlet Witch was the way. And it's like, okay, how do we introduce that? I guess I'm torn. I'll be honest. I'm really torn. I think a lot of it's going to depend on how they kind of lay the rest of this out. I mean, from starters, it's dope. I mean, I love this episode, and I love those scenes. The scene of her at the Hydra facility and seeing the silhouette of what we now know is probably herself, or at least maybe a previous Scarlet Witch, I don't know. And then, of course, the last scene where she refers to her as the Scarlet Witch. I mean, those are dope scenes. Like, there's nothing against that. But in terms of, this concept that, the Scarlet Witch is like, I don't know. Like Ra's al Ghul, it's just a title that gets passed down to people or whatever. I mean, right. I gotta see how I gotta kind of see it play out. I guess I would say TBD on that in terms of like being the best idea. I thought the reveal and the rollout of it was amazing. The shooting, the colors. I mean, the colors on that scene with Wanda and the Mind Stone, and then the silhouette. I mean, just beautiful stuff. The color, I mean, they've been nailing the color in the shooting in every episode pretty much. But this episode had some amazing shots, and so I guess I love the presentation. I'm TBD on what the execution will be.
The energy that Agatha had in terms of acknowledging that Wanda was a Scarlet Witch was similar to Vegeta when he saw Broly at the legendary Super Saiyan. And was like, whoa, what's going on here? You're the legendary Super Saiyan. Yeah. I think it's an interesting twist. You did mention the kind of vision that she saw, for lack of a better term. The vision that she saw. A lot of internet sleuths have been able to blow up the image and sharpen it and crisp it out. It's certainly Elizabeth Olsen in a costume that obviously resembles what her final form will end up being. So certainly check that out if you can. But it seems like it was almost like a future, kind of I don't want to say a forced future scene like we had in The Force Awakens, but
definitely gotta check that out. I didn't even pick up on that. See, you have to watch these episodes multiple times, I feel, to even get most of this. I didn't even notice that. That's really cool and really interesting. I liked really all of the flashbacks.
Yeah.
That she had to the one shoot where she was little, and you see the box full of the shows, and you see that's where she got those ideas from. And of course, you have the Stark. Make sure to make it very clear it's Stark Industries. Right on that missile. So I mean, it was like, wow.
There's a lot of people that were blasting Tony Stark.
They were getting mad at Tony Stark.
As if Obadiah.
My girlfriend was like, so Tony Stark's a weapons dealing jerk, and I'm like, yeah, we know that already.
Yeah,
but he's Iron Man. Iron Man 1. Go back and watch it.
So Stark Tech has been a problem for a long time, which we all know. So all those flashbacks were great.
Yeah, the first one I thought was really good. Because it was cool to see the sitcom tie-in. That was the question that people always had. Why is it sitcom?
Why is sitcoms? Yeah.
This makes no sense. And this was a popular theory that maybe when she was in Sokovia, she used to watch sitcoms.
Yeah.
And that ended up being the case. It was funny how they had the specific shows that they were replicating,
right?
In the boxes. It was a nice tie-in. Even when they showed Dick Van Dyke, the scenes were drawn. It was taken straight from the show.
That was really awesome to me.
So yeah, I mean that. I could see a longer episode just on and they may, when they do their whole behind the scenes featurette show, to show you the specific scenes that they pulled from different shows. But that was a cool call there.
So and then even later when she was sad and stuff, and she was watching Malcolm in the Middle.
Yeah,
and,
exactly.
I was like, oh, so that's what I got.
Yeah, I believe in the Hydra scene, she probably was watching Brady Bunch. I would imagine.
Yes, she was in the Hydra scene. Yeah, that was a young Cindy Brady, and parents had to kill me. I can't remember the youngest boy, but yeah, I the one thing I do want to mention about the flashbacks is you mentioned the first one, Kendall, and I agree. I really like how they tied in the sitcoms and how it was a family. It was kind of like a family gathering that they used to try to learn English. I thought it was just really wholesome. This is really nice, fun content. I just really enjoyed it, and it makes it more sad that this would all end very terribly. You knew very soon. I didn't know if it would be a bomb right there, but you knew eventually this wasn't going to be her forever life. The most important aspect of that scene, I still think, is obviously what happened to the bomb, the drone by the Stark Industry.
It was defective, yeah.
Well, was it? And I think this show left it really super open-ended. That's why when I say I'm hearing on the internet some people disappointed, saying, oh, we ain't going to get nothing that we want. I'm like, I don't know. I mean, that scene, we know that Agatha leans towards Wanda. She stopped that IED.
Probability.
And Wanda's like, I don't know any hexes, and I no, it was defective. And I think it's open ended. I think we're gonna get an answer to that next week. We're gonna know for sure what the situation is. But to me looked like they're trying to move off of the Infinity Stone is the only reason why she has any powers. That to me looked like, okay, we're establishing that she had powers before. The question is, why? Well, if you're talking about Wanda Maximoff, daughter of Magneto, I'm still running to mutants or something like that.
So that's what I want to ask.
That was to me maybe the most important flashback we saw.
Um,
Maybe second being the Hayward flashback.
They went back to the Sokovia stuff and back to Wanda's parents, and they made Wanda's parents like a very important part, in her story, and the Sokovian background a very important part in her story. There's been no allusion to there being an adoption, no allusion to her, or some guy named Magneto. There's been no allusion. There was plenty of allusions to that in, X-Men Days of Future Past when it came to Peter Maximoff. They made it very clear. All right, this is where we're going. And, they never really went full tilt with it, but that's clearly where they were going. Do we think that they were just going to retcon it? I mean, I would hope not. Kevin Feige, if you're listening. I would hope not. I would hope that Magneto plays a role in this. And I would venture to guess that maybe that's his role. Is that, she kind of feels very alone. No family connection, no Vision, no Quicksilver, no parents. And all of a sudden, Magneto shows up. Now, maybe not in the show, but just in the future of the MCU. That when we do get a Magneto, and that is the reveal, that there will be a connection there.
I hope so. I mean, I mean, it's something that you can try to write into the story later, introducing, whatever kind of adoption, maybe baby switching, whatever. Yeah. The parents lied and this and that. I mean, they could write that in later if they wanted to. I hope that's not what they do, man. I don't want them to be coy with it. I want to just look, I don't know who my dad is, and I know that doesn't seem like we're getting that, but something along those lines, something like, my parents said they found me on their stoop one day, or something like that, like that's what I want. I want to know that Magneto's coming. I want to know that Professor X is coming. I'm tired of the whole, I don't know, Sokovia and Stark Tech and I want to know that Magneto's coming.
It made sense when they didn't have the rights to the X-Men.
It made sense.
This is a fun way to
I don't want them to put Evan Peters in the show and have him play Quicksilver, but it's not Quicksilver. Like, I want them to just, just blend the universes already. Yeah. Like, this thing where they just, I don't know. So I wish they were just much more directed. I'm losing hope, man. I'm losing hope.
Look,
EJ, be Johnny Optimus here.
I get
hope
people are losing hope, but when it comes to the specificity of childbirth, I just feel like that's so people could be separated by birth. I mean, I'm not too tripping that her parents are very important to her. They are. I mean, Magneto wasn't around his kids. Like, that's part of his story. Like, and that's why they're kind of the people they are. So that's why their names are Maximoff, not Lencher or whatever he would go by his last name. So like, right. I'm not as concerned with they're emphasizing the important role of her parents. And those end up being adopted parents. Like, that's fine. And I don't think that's something that it's a big deal. In fact, they could be setting you guys up for the reverse, where it's like you guys are kind of being lulled to sleep, and then they say, well, actually, she got her. Her parents picked her up when she was, an infant or whatever, which is very possible. So I still think that there's potentially a very earth-shattering, earth-altering thing to happen at the end of this season, potentially. So I don't want to say anything's off the table because Wanda could, as we know, recreate reality to be whatever she wants it to be. And if that ends up expanding further than what we think, then anything is still possible. I'm not saying that I'm, holding my breath for it, but I think that some of the concerns that some of these things won't be introduced, if not now, but then later, or maybe later, I think they're maybe a little premature. I think that what we're learning with Marvel Studios, and I think we, in hindsight, I think that we all should have probably had more we should have probably like realized this, that like when they say they're doing a show on, Wanda and Vision or Wanda Maximoff, like it's a show about Wanda Maximoff. It's not gonna be X-Men prequel. You know what I'm saying? Like it's gonna be a show that really truly goes through like the story and the background of the people that they're trying to feature. Doesn't mean you won't have really great cameos and really great stuff, but to think that like you're gonna get that very early on, that's gonna play a big part in the season. I'll bet Bettany and Elizabeth have like hyping up this season, so it kind of maybe rose the antennas. But I don't think that. I think we should anticipate that they're gonna flesh out all these characters and who they're introducing as much as they can.
So you're telling me Loki's not going to be about Thor?
Well, Thor is part of the Thor MCU, so even if Thor is a part of it, or in like I'm saying like the extreme crazy OMG moment kind of thing, like people I think came into this expecting that every episode, and even until like the penultimate. And what I'm trying to say is I think that they will get some stuff. I still feel like it's just gonna be much shorter, much more condensed. It's not gonna be Doctor Strange pulls up in episode 8 and like the rest of the season he's just fighting with them. Like that's not gonna happen. Like they're gonna do some stuff, but it's just gonna be a lot more condensed.
Yeah, I mean, I have a lot of, like everybody, I have a lot of questions after this episode. So first of all, one of the more pressing questions I was left with is, so what's the deal with Vision, right? So we know that Vision was created by Wanda, which leads to a whole other question, but I'm not even going to go there yet. So Vision was created by Wanda, or this Vision was created by Wanda. Why is he like not being controlled? Why can't Wanda control him? Can she not control him? Is she just choosing to not control him?
I mean, I feel like because she can't control her kids either. So this tells me that, like, besides Pietro and Agatha, the only people that she can't really control are, people she's created out of nothing. Like, created matter. So her kids are through her creation. We still don't know exactly how that happened. I hope we get an answer to that, but we'll see. And Vision, also created by out of nowhere. And I think those creations she doesn't have as much control over. People that are within her illusion, they and again her power wanes. Again, the further you are, the less control she seems to have. It seems like she can't really tell you to do much except stand still or whatever. You know what I'm saying? But I think that was the impression I got when I thought about that myself. I said, well, it seems like whatever she creates, she can't actually control, or at least not to the level of the other people.
So this is something I just thought of too. What about those other kids from those in the Halloween? Did she create them too? Because they didn't seem to be in the show before.
That's a good point. I don't know.
And they just showed up and they were all eating candy and stuff. And like, I mean, was she controlling them? Or were they just?
That's a hard one to answer.
Yes,
that's a question. That's a great question, and I do want to answer.
That's another question where they may just leave that open.
Yeah, I don't know if we're gonna get an answer to that.
That would be unfortunate if we don't get a question to why there were no kids. And Vision mentioned that there are no kids.
Yeah, he said there were no kids. And there's all of a sudden they're kids. Because her creating the town seemed to be a very big deal.
And I had to go back and watch the Halloween episode, but did Pietro, as Agatha called him, did he mention something about like, oh, you brought he mentioned something about those kids, but I don't know.
Yeah.
I forgot in what context, like what exactly he said. So forgive me, audience, if you guys do know what he said. But I can't remember if he said, oh, the kid's asleep and then you brought them out to play. Like, I kind of feel he said something along those lines. So maybe they always were there, but he tried to keep them out of this for the sake of the efficacy of it. But I'd have to check. And then once like things got like more out of control, like she felt, okay, well, when Vision's understanding this is fake, I gotta keep it up. So all right, bring the kids.
When you think about it, like she just took over the town. So like if there are any kids in Westview, like, which I would imagine most towns around the United States have some kids, then I guess that would mean that they were there at some point. But why Vision didn't see them, I don't know. Maybe they just weren't in the script. That doesn't make. I don't know. There's not really an explanation. You mentioned there's a playground, but there's no kids. It's all weird how that played out.
Yeah, it's very strange.
And and also to answer about why Vision can't be controlled, I wonder if it's just because, like you say, he can't control the kids either. But I also wonder if it's because he's not human. So, what is there to even control? I don't know. The whole thing with Vision is completely weird. Because, like you said, how can she even create? So she can literally create vibranium. Because
she created vibranium.
Hayward was tracking the vibranium on Vision.
Yeah.
And realized there's another Vision in there. It's an actual Vision.
Yeah.
But that wasn't.
Now we know, and that's also, I want to get a lot to that bozo Hayward. But now we know why he was tweaking. Because he's like, yo, fam, I got the Vision in my back trunk. Who is that dude? Who is that dude? He didn't know what was going on. And now it makes sense why he was so focused on Vision. It's still a little weird because he's like, hey, a sentient, it feels like a sentient being is like wilding out. You're worried about Vision, but that probably really freaked him out. He's like, I have Vision in my trunk, and somehow he's out and he can't do anything. But this guy is functioning and is just like the Vision that we thought was destroyed. So I gotta get to this bozo Hayward. To me, first of all, we learned that he's been capping. He's been capping. We knew he'd been capping, but it was very obvious that this episode to kind of lay out exactly how he was capping. He laid the story out weeks ago. Oh, Wanda broke in our facility, took Vision's body, and then ran off. We see in I would say the second most important flashback that's not what happened. Wanda pulled up to Sword, still grieving, still devastated, knowing that they had his body and saying, let me take him. I want to see him and I want to bury him properly. And Hayward basically says, we're dismantling him. I put that in quotation marks. We're dismantling him, and he's too dangerous to be just giving to anybody. So
he's worth too much money.
He's worth too much money. He's worth too much. It's too much of a issue. You have the abilities potentially to bring him back. So we're not going to let you do anything. I feel like something's very wrong with Hayward. To me, that scene, he's clearly baiting Wanda to do something very reckless. And he almost gets her wish. Like, to me, him saying, like, you can't bring him back sounded very familiar to me to when the kids were like, you got to bring back the dog. Like, just like you should have brought back Pietro. Like, to me, like, it was kind of like the same thing. It was a manipulation. And Wanda very much almost took the bait, but once, to her eyes, again, she has a lot of self-doubt. She saw that there was no life in that robot, basically, as well as he became, that there was no use. There was no point. And, she didn't want to get into a firefight with those people in there, so she left, just devastated. But to me, Hayward, he's dirty, man. Like, we see by the end, the Project Cataract, they were able to use Wanda's, energy source from that drone she sent back to create a new Vision. And it goes to I don't know if that was his plan. If that was his plan, it was brilliant, because there's no way a drone's gonna stop someone as powerful as Wanda. But what the idea was, hopefully she'll bring it back, we'll be able to retrieve it somehow and use that energy to create him. And that was really well done. But something is up. He wanted her to create Vision right there, and she didn't. I don't know who. I mean, we've mentioned the rumors. Is he Mephisto? Is he Ultron? I don't know. He's somebody. I don't think he's just a regular behind Bozo
government.
No,
he's somebody. The way he was moving this episode, the way he's been capping,
there were
clearly wrong.
There were people that thought that, like, when they were that post-credit scene when they showed the White Vision, that we were gonna get Ultron. Like, that was Ultron and not White Vision. So, and I think that would have been cooler. That would have cost more money to do. You got to bring in,
James Spader.
James Spader, and you gotta. it says I suppose you have a you already have a Vision on the show. Supposed to Paul Bettany. There is a possibility. I think that he is Ultron.
Really?
I think that is because I feel like Tyler Hayward is nobody. Like that's a nobody. That's a nothing burger in the Marvel universe. So
that's true.
Again, maybe he's just like government guy, but Skrull seems weird. I don't know if that has anything.
Why would he lie? Like.
Right.
Like the lying aspect to him makes it super sinister. We knew he was lying, but like now when you see the gravity in which he lied,
and then also
why did he even take Homeboy's body?
I'm wondering about that scene is weird because like he gives that explanation in front of everybody, right?
Yep.
In front of a lot of people, when there are clearly plenty of people in Sword that knew that they had Vision's body.
Yep.
So
remember the part of it. A lot of their conversation was one-on-one. It wasn't until she broke that glass when she actually went down. That's when he's like, hey, stand down, people. Let her see what we all see, that this guy is dead.
Right.
I don't know if a lot of you could bring him back.
I'm
cost
saying
is too much. Like I don't think they heard any of that stuff.
When Hayward was talking to Monica.
Saying when Monica, Cameron, and Darcy.
Oh, right, yeah.
He explained the story. He explained it in front of a bunch of agents.
Yeah.
Yes, he was.
She's a threat. She went and came in. Here's the footage.
Yeah.
Like where the rest of them that's not how it happened.
I feel like Sword, and we kind of talked about it last week. I feel like Sword is setting up to be a way more kind of what's the word? Nefarious organization. That's how it's looking to me. I don't know if this is a branch that's just kind of on one and he's doing his own thing. I don't know if these are people who we think are agents but are actually Ultron bots. Like, I don't think so, because when they were in the Wandavision, they were just clowns. They didn't turn into robots or whatever. So I would assume they are regular people. So I don't know, but and that's why I go back to that conversation about what is going on with Fury. Oh, he's working with Sword. Every time I see Sword, the more and more I'm like, there's no way Nick Fury is associated with these clowns. Every week, it doesn't make sense to me. Not saying that that's not the case. But just how this Sword acts, this guy being in charge on Earth, and the deception behind it, it's nothing like S.H.I.E.L.D. It's way worse. So
I think we have to.
It's just something is up. Something is wrong.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Because Maria Rambeau started it up, and I'm
saying it must have been corrupted. Right. Something's wrong right now.
Yeah.
Is it possible that Hayward's being controlled by somebody? Or that Sword is being controlled.
I can see that.
Controlled by.
We know that there were outside forces. There were forces outside of the Hex. We assume that was Wanda that was controlling those cops. But maybe it wasn't the cops. Or maybe it wasn't Wanda that was controlling those cops to say that Westview doesn't exist. I assume it was, but I do wonder if there is another force out there, that is manipulating things. But You do wonder, like you said, is he being controlled, and are the people in Sword being controlled, or is he working for somebody?
He's on somebody's payroll.
Yeah, he's on somebody's payroll. Is he AIM? Is he Hydra? Those are the obvious suspects. AIM and Hydra are the first people you go to. But I don't know. Is he Trask Industries? I don't know.
Yeah. There's any number of organizations or people he could be working under, or people he could just be.
Yeah.
Something's definitely up with Hayward. He's now he's like in ultra bad guy evil mode. Where
he's like the main villain at this point. Like not like
pretty much him and the White Vision.
Yeah, and the White Vision. Like Agatha is clearly an adversary to Wanda directly, but in terms of like who's been the most evil, like he's the guy who's like the most mustache twirly in the show right now.
Yeah.
On the White Vision thing. I mentioned that Paul Bettany talks about how the secret actor that he wants to work with, always wanted to work with when he was a kid. Is there a chance that he was talking about himself?
100%.
And
I am on the 100% on the troll. Paul Bettany is trolling us
by saying that he is the guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be
because I feel like I would agree that would be corny. I would hate that that's the case, but I've come to that conclusion because. Right. Because he was very he was very bold about continuing this ruse about how nobody's gonna know. I never worked this person before.
No one
But
guessed who it is.
the way in which he's talking, every time he's talked, it eliminated people. So it made it easier to guess who potentially.
Said, "Oh, we're gonna share scenes. They're gonna be so intense."
Yeah, every time he talked, it opened up the possibilities for people that we could mention. So every time he talked, he let more out of the bag potentially, unless it was something that was so outrageous that like no one would think about. And no, nobody would think that Paul Bettany would be excited to work for himself because that's not a real answer. It's ridiculous. But I think that's what he's doing, and I don't think that Elizabeth was tripping when she said Luke Skywalker, like.
Yeah, I think there is
appearance.
still something else.
But I think whatever Betty's been saying, I think that I'm on the. We need to get off.
Yeah,
everything.
I feel like Bettany could have been talking about himself, and that Olsen could have been talking about Doctor Strange.
Yeah, I mean, I'm starting to think that it could be something like that too. I mean, I pretty much given up on the Luke Skywalker. You thought Reed Richards maybe, maybe Magneto, Professor X,
Fassbender,
McAvoy,
Patrick Stewart.
But now it's like, no, there is no Luke Skywalker.
The only thing that you have to throw out there is that look, Multiverse of Madness is called Multiverse of Madness. And why is it called that? I mean, Evan Peters, again, there was nothing in this. There were some people that are like, oh, confirmed, not Fox Quicksilver. I mean, there was really nothing in this that said that it wasn't him.
Oh, to me, I don't understand the people that think that this somehow confirmed that that's not Evan Peters. I thought the Fox Quicksilver. I thought it lend more evidence.
He left it completely wide open. If you're leaving it completely wide open, that means that there's significance to it.
Yeah, because she says I couldn't bring back your dead brother.
Yeah, which was the theory that we had on.
And that this guy is just my eyes and ears. So again, we know everybody in there is real. She didn't create him.
No.
Agatha didn't create him. So
and he has super speed. Why
he has speed. No one. I mean, now could you argue, okay, well, Agatha could have given anybody powers? I mean, maybe, but I don't know. I'm not. I'm still on the that is X-Men's Quicksilver. That's me. I could be totally wrong, but to me, there's nothing that was said today that went the opposite. Was it as far gone as people maybe would have hoped they would have got it confirmed? No, but I mean, again, I think it leans towards it's still him. Because if she's saying, it's not someone I created, I couldn't get your dead brother because he's dead, so I didn't get someone who was alive. So, like, to me, the only other answer is just a massive troll, which is just like, again, we talked about this a couple weeks ago or maybe last week. I just don't think Marvel would troll us like that. Bettany, yeah, that's a different kind of troll, and I can see them pulling our leg. I don't see them saying, let's pull back an X-Men character that people really love and let's mess with the fans and just make them nobody. I don't think
Kevin Feige said very early on in the process that they hired. That's when they came to the decision they were going to use Evan Peters, which makes it seem that one, like the Aaron Taylor Johnson thing wasn't a contractual thing where I was like, oh, now we got to find a different Quicksilver. Like it seems like the plan all along was to introduce Evan Peters, and for that reason, it makes me think that they wouldn't do that only for it to just be just some elaborate ruse, some funny meta joke, just to mess with people.
Another Mandarin.
Yeah, like why would you go into a show? All right, we're making this show. First of all, we want a Mandarin like Joe. Like, wouldn't that be great? Like, that's not something you can start. You start your script writing.
Isn't that strange? You have a bunch of people that can't wait to see the X-Men.
Yeah.
You bring in the X-Men Quicksilver and it's a troll. Why would you do that?
Yeah, that
so isn't that kind of a bummer? I don't. So yeah, I don't understand it. We have the only thing that's like we have one episode left. If I see the runtime and it's an hour or more, then my hope starts to increase a little bit.
Yeah.
At that point I'm like, all right, so we're getting into this is serious. This now is gonna be serious. If it's less than an hour, at that point I'm like, then we're gonna have a bunch of loose ends. We'll get a couple cool fight scenes, and Vision will beat White Vision, and then everything else is left to Doctor Strange.
Right. So you did mention the finale. Do we have any predictions on some of these loose ends that we mentioned?
And the loose ends. I think we'll find out what's up with Hayward. I do think we'll find out what's going on with Hayward because he's been the villain for like most of the season.
And where do you lean towards?
Boy, that's a good question. With the Hayward thing, it's so up in the air. I mean, it's very hard to know. For now,
He's
I think
just evil government guy.
the safe bet for now is evil government guy.
Yeah.
Honestly, that's the safe
I
bet.
agree.
Is evil government guy. You know,
no chance.
just because they've done it so much. You know,
I know.
Marvel's comfortable with evil government guy.
It's so convenient that I don't think they're going that way. I think that he's someone.
Yeah. I mean, I hope not.
Yeah, I'm gonna say he's Ultron. That's
Wow.
they keep showing Age of Ultron. They can't help but remind us of it every time. Like, we're gonna get that payoff at some point.
That's the only loose end in terms of the Age of Ultron that just hadn't even touched.
Yeah, where's Ultron?
Yeah,
why haven't you even brought up? They even showed Ultron's face in any of the flashbacks.
Yeah.
Why not? Not even in the previously on. They don't show Ultron.
Exactly.
It's like, why not?
If Ultron shows up in the flashback at all, like the actual Ultron shows up in the flashback at all in that episode.
Previously on.
Yeah, like previously on, guaranteed he's in the episode.
Yeah,
guaranteed, no question.
Other predictions. I think we'll see.
Also,
Wanda
I'm gonna throw it. I think he's a Skrull.
You think he's a Skrull? Okay.
I think he's a tie-in to Secret Invasion.
The only reason why I held off Skrull, I think it's possible, but the only reason why I held off Skrull because I think that the Major from last week was a Skrull.
I think she's a Skrull too. I agree.
So my thing is, okay, we got evil Skrulls and good Skrulls. That might be a little confusing of a concept. So
I think that's what they're going. I actually think that. They made the Skrulls good, quote unquote, in Captain Marvel, so that Secret Invasion will be more surprising.
And I kind of agree with that. I just don't know if they're going to introduce something that complicated where they're not going to give a lot of time to it in this episode. Unless maybe somehow we learn that the Major in a future project or a future movie, we learn that she's a Skrull, but she's a good Skrull. Maybe I can see that, but again, I'm going to lean towards that. That's not something they're going to explore immediately. I think we're going to see Wanda go Scarlet Witch. I think that I think it's the only way she's going to be able to defeat whoever the final boss is here. Or at the very least, keep herself alive. So whether that's Agatha, whether that's Hayward / Ultron / Super Skrull, whatever he is, I think that we're going to see that maturation process will take place, which is why Feige introduced her as a Scarlet Witch, because we're going to come into that movie. It's going to be Doctor Strange dealing with the Scarlet Witch.
Do we think that we're getting the villain for Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness revealed in this episode? And
yes.
So who do you think?
I still think Mephisto's behind a lot of this.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
I think to me, if Mephisto to me, the only thing that's stopping Hayward from being a Skrull or being a Skrull is if he's being influenced by Mephisto. Because when you asked earlier, could he be being influenced? Like, oh, absolutely, I could totally see Mephisto being behind everything he's doing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, I would say the same thing. I think yes, we will find out, and yes, it's Mephisto. So I mean, that's what I think. I think we're gonna find out Agatha was working underneath Mephisto. She's doing his bidding. I think that's just where this story's going.
I'm gonna say that it's Nightmare. I'm gonna say that it's Nightmare. We had the early word that was what Scott Derrickson was cooking up for Doctor Strange too. I'm gonna say they didn't move too far off of that, but and I think we will find out in the next episode. I don't know if we'll find out who's playing him or if it'll be more of a tease. Do we think? I think that Doctor Strange is going to be, and I think that Doctor Strange may even alert us to the fact that there is something else going on here. Like that's the reason he jumps in. He's not jumping in because of this X thing. He's jumping in because there's something far more insidious going on. But do you guys agree that Doctor Strange is showing up?
Yes. I'm 100% on that.
Yeah, I'm about 80%, but I think he's gonna show up.
What about X-Men mutants? Any X-Men or mutants
showing up or reference? Like, what's the?
At the very least, a reference.
We're gonna get something. We're gonna get
connection.
We've got none so far. We all agree.
I mean, connection. Yeah, we haven't had anything so far. I mean, connection. I would say probably 65, 70. I think so, because I think another thing I wanted to bring up too is her creating this whole town out of nothing, creating Vision out of nothing.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's the mutants right there.
Yeah.
So I think we're gonna get, I think we're gonna get a lot more of that. I think EJ's House of M thing.
Her power level is clearly off the charts,
Yeah.
clearly over 9,000.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think we're gonna get like an expanded version of that.
Yeah, I agree. I think that I think that what's happening in this series, I totally think is the connection to mutants. I think the question that people are gonna have is it gonna be revealed in the next episode, or will that be something that just gets revealed as time goes on? And I'm still leaning towards it is. I know we're running out of time. I know that you know, there's not, again, we're running out of time, and that they've kind of really played it straight for the most part. But as Sham and you guys have said throughout this whole recap, I mean, there's just too many unanswered questions, and I think that some of this stuff, in terms of what they're trying to set up for the future, they gotta start to lay down the groundwork. It can't just be all set up. You know what I'm saying? Like at some point, you gotta start to tell us something. And to me, there's still a lot of questions about, why Wanda's able to do this. Like, to me, that fundamental question still has not been answered. We learned a lot. Like, Agatha's, day in your life, or, it's a wonderful world, a wonderful life, whatever that movie's called, It's a Wonderful Life. Yeah. Trip down memory lane was very informative. But as Agatha said, I have a theory, but I need more. That's how I feel in this episode. I have some theories, but I need a lot more.
I was hoping that she was leaning towards like a theory that you might be a mutant, but unfortunately, it was going down the Scarlet Witch path.
Yeah, I thought she when she said that was right after the whole, bomb thing in the Stark Industries drone. So I thought she was too, and then we realized that when she said that she was talking about the Scarlet Witch in particular.
Right.
But I mean, I still think that that's what's happening. Because again, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say I feel like mutants, on some level, will be referenced. Kevin Feige said during Comic-Con that mutants are coming on some level. So I would hope that the show with an obvious mutant historically would reference that. Mm-hmm. Do we think that is there any chance that Magneto or Professor X show?
Any chance? Yeah, definitely. Like I said, the longer the runtime is, the more I have hope we're going to see. Yeah, we're going to get that Luke Skywalker.
Hope springs eternal. That would be. And look, we go back to the beginning, how we felt like that's the only thing that is Luke Skywalker.
That's the only
level. Doctor Strange would be cool. That's very expected.
I mean, that's fine.
Yeah.
But that's not Luke Skywalker.
Yeah.
So if you want a Luke Skywalker moment, that's Professor X or Magneto. Or even Quicksilver saying, "Oh, I'm a mutant."
Yeah, where's Charles?
Waking up. How did I get
here?
Yeah. Then I'm like, that's another one where I'm like, oh my god.
Where's Magneto? Even if they reference, that's all we need. That's all we need for us to lose our minds and say it's the greatest show.
That's it. It's the best thing ever. I can't wait for more Marvel stuff. I'm so excited. So yeah. I mean, I think there's a chance. The chances. I mean, it's getting smaller and smaller.
Yeah.
The chance that we're getting anything specifically X-Men, Magneto, Professor X, I think it's probably low. At this point, I'm in the teens, maybe the 20s, but in terms of percentage. But yeah, I do think it's still possible.
I do want to also give a shout out to one of the more touching scenes, which was Vision with Wanda after Pietro's death, and her, that quote he gave, which is, I saw someone say it's going to be on people's tattoos for probably the next 10 years, is, grief, just love, persevering. It's a beautiful line, and Vision has he gets some great writing, whether it was what we saw Whedon do in Age of Ultron and what we've seen in throughout this whole process with Schaefer. That was well acted by Bettany. I just wanted to make sure we noted that scene. That was maybe not necessarily the biggest scene in terms of Easter eggs, but just really important to the dynamic of why Wanda sees something so special in Vision, and seeing the future that they had, and her instinct when she realized she couldn't take him was to go back to the plot of land where they were going to build their home and live together in Westview, New Jersey. Tragic stuff, man. It's she's a tragic figure, and this is all really, really sad.
That's what Tiana Paris said about the show. That is really sad.
This was a sad. This was a really sad episode to me.
That's probably what she was talking about.
Oh yeah.
Do we think that there's any last thing that I want to ask? Any Spider-Man
Yeah,
connect.
there will be. I don't know what it will be yet. Well, I'm not. I totally still feel like if things get out of hand, that again, what happened at the end of Far From Home is impacted and came from this. I still
Right.
think that that's very possible because of the proximity to New York City, knowing that this is a connection to that movie. And
And
again,
Evan
I'm only
Peter,
listening to what Feige has said. He's
yeah,
told me
Evan
that.
Peter showing up, and then J. Jonah Jameson showing up.
Yeah,
Seems like a
yeah.
coincidence.
Yes, that something is up. I think that we're gonna get something. I think that the answer is gonna be that that's what's happened.
And then also the Morbius trip. Like they hit us over the head with it.
Yeah, there's a lot of weird
Bunch
stuff
of
going
times.
on. Like if you're not gonna, if you're not gonna address it now, when are you gonna address it?
Yeah.
You know. So
Right.
I think that it begins with this last episode. I think it'll be a long episode. I think that there will be multiple post credit scenes, and we'll get a lot of answers. Maybe not as far as we thought, but we'll still get pretty far.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think we'll get some kind of allusion to the Spider-Man, to the next Spider-Man movie. And I think, honestly, I think more the Spider-Man movie will take stuff from this movie,
Right. Right.
as opposed to this movie. I think this movie is primarily leading into Doctor Strange. Honestly,
Right.
I think this movie is just leading into Doctor Strange, and Spider-Man will take some stuff from the show, I guess. But
Right.
yeah, that's what I think.
So I think we're at the point of the episode where we should give a score. So I'll go to Sham first. What are you giving episode 8 of WandaVision?
I give it an 8. So I give episode 8 an 8 out of 10. I've been giving a lot of 8s lately, but all the episodes have been 8s. So it's a decent episode. It's not fantastic, but I thought it was very solid. It had a lot of good character moments. Some cool action-y shots. Some pretty crazy reveals, cool flashbacks. Great acting as always by the entire cast. They all do a fantastic job. So yeah, I give it an 8. I thought it was a solid episode. I'm hoping the next one can really live up to the hype and be that 9 or 10.
Yeah. I'll go with an 8 as well. I feel like, copying Shamari today. I'm going to go with an 8. And, I feel like this was a good episode. I thought this was better than last week's episode. The flashback elements worked. They tied in a lot of the questions that we had. We still have more questions to be answered. I think next week's going to have a huge job to fulfill.
Yeah.
It's a very important job. If next week's episode 47 minutes like this one, then chalk it up. It's not going to be.
I'm losing faith.
It's not going to be any higher than 7.5. In terms of how good it's going to be. It's got to be really long. We got to get WandaVision, the movie, or whatever they're going to call it. So, but I have hope in Kevin Feige. Hope springs eternal of Kevin Feige.
In Feige, we trust.
I'm gonna give this episode 9. I thought that this was the best episode they did so far. In some ways, I kind of hate giving it a 9 because I really did love the sitcom episodes, and sometimes it kind of makes you feel like, oh, you're kind of, dissing the sitcom episode because now you got a Marvel-less episode, to lack of a better term, and you gave it a 9. But I really did think that this was really outstanding. Again, Catherine Hahn, the full introduction to the Agatha Harkness character, and seeing kind of her motivations through all of this. The flashbacks, it was the first really true, kind of just look into the life of Wanda Maximoff up until this point, and to know who she is and what brought her to this. And it's these series, these Falcon and Winter Soldier, your Hawkeye, your Loki. I mean, these should be series where these characters that maybe are villains or side characters, that they don't get that kind of real case study kind of look into how their characters have been developed over the last 10 years, some of them. I think that this is what these series are about. These should be about us really getting to understand these people deeper than what maybe we could. We're not going to know everything about Falcon because we know the movies of Captain America. And there's, Winter Soldier and Spider-Man's in it. So, just some of this stuff, these nuances about them, we're not going to know. Even though a lot is happening. As we see, a lot has happened to Wanda. They've told us a lot has happened to Wanda. But that, any kind of search into that just has never gone that deep. So this was the episode that they did that, and I thought they knocked it out of the park. Elizabeth Olsen once again continues to thrive. Beautifully shot stuff. I think some of the most beautiful shots they've done, and I think and a great ending and a great crescendo that that this is the Scarlet Witch character, and That's just a hell of a way to go into your season finale, and I'm thrilled. I can't
Last
wait.
last
Loved it.
last question I want to ask real
Yeah.
quick. What was the deal with the kids? You know, like we
What do you
assumed
mean?
going into the Young Avengers that they would be older. Do we think they're even going to be in the Young Avengers? Like
Yeah.
what's the Wiccan Speed?
I
And
mean,
are they going to age them up?
I think they're. I think that they'll be aged up. It's funny. We talked about predictions. I also predict that they're going to be aged up in the next episode. I think the fact that, in fact, the only way I think they may be able to escape Agatha is because they will age themselves up. And some of the conversations we had earlier in the season about Wanda telling them, "Hey, you can't just age yourself up when things get tough." I think this is going to be a moment where, if you guys can age yourself up now, that'd be really nice because there's a lot of danger right now.
Right.
I think that will be the moment where you're introduced to whoever the young actors are who will be playing them moving forward. So I think that they're definitely gonna be aged up soon. I think that they'll have a big impact on this last episode.
Yeah, I think they're going to be aged up as well. I guess I don't know necessarily it's going to happen next episode. I would think so.
Yeah.
But I think they're going to be aged up again.
Yeah, I would imagine that they're going to be aged up. There is a possibility that they don't do it until the next time you see them. Like, because when is the next time? I mean, they could be in Doctor Strange too, but maybe they're not. If they're not, then Young Avengers until
2025.
Yeah, 2025. Then maybe then you change. I mean, they already did that with Cassie Lang, where they're just gonna. I know it's a different actress, different world. So I don't know. Maybe they'll do the same thing with Wiccan and Speed, but I tend to lean with what you guys are saying, where they'll age them up in the next episode, but there's not a guarantee.
Yeah.
What do you guys think of episode 8 of WandaVision, previously on? Make sure you guys leave a comment in the comment section. What are your theories? Are you losing confidence that we'll get any major reveals or X-Men allusions in the final season finale? Again, give us your thoughts in the comment section. If you did enjoy this video, make sure you give us a like and subscribe to the channel, New Generation Media. And make sure you also listen to our podcast, New Generation Hero Talk, where we talk about all this stuff on our podcast network, New Generation Podcast Network. So that's going to do it for now. Thank you guys for checking us out. For Kendall, for Shamari, I'm EJ. Take it easy, guys. Peace.